The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, this is Paul Lemberg and welcome to today's webinar, Building Your Business with Practical Spirituality. Before I go on, I just want to do a quick sound check. And would somebody just type into the question box and let me know that you see the slide that says Building Your Business with Practical Spirituality and that you can hear me. So if someone would just type that into the question box. Got it. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Yes, thank you, everybody who just typed that in. And I know you can hear me, so I can take it from there. So today's webinar is about how to accelerate your business to gain lasting life satisfaction and to make more money by activating your spiritual soul and aligning it with your business brain. And that is the promise of today's webinar. I'm going to do my best to deliver on exactly that. And before I do, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. And this is going to be a powerful program. This is a very different kind of material than I think you've ever heard before. And there's some important knowledge in it for you. And to get the most out of it, it would be really good if you give it your full attention. And what I mean by that is no multitasking. So I know we all think that we're really good at multitasking, and I think I'm good at it. And the truth is that none of us are really as good at it as we think. So turn off your cell, or at least put it on silent. I've started putting mine in airplane mode so it doesn't even buzz and it doesn't catch my attention. Close all your browser windows. Make sure that you've got something to take notes with. And one more thing, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer I will answer them at the end. So you can put them into the question box. I probably won't even see them until then. So just type them into the question box and we'll look at them later. And I think that's it. There's not a lot of housekeeping. I think we can take it from there. So a few quick things about me in case you don't know me. I have been working directly with hundreds of entrepreneurs and business owners to help them profit in their businesses since 1995. I have given seminars and spoken to tens of thousands more. Tens of thousands have read my books. So a lot of people are familiar with the kind of work that I have been doing, which has all been about the nuts and bolts of growing businesses. I personally started and sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies. I've done corporate consulting for companies including IBM, AT&T, Cisco Systems, Dell. My career has included a whole bunch of things. I've been a performance artist. I have a fine arts degree. I was a software designer, a market researcher. Let's go back to that. Somehow lost that slide. A market researcher, a corporate strategist. I've been a salesman. I've been a sales and marketing executive, a sales trainer, a business coach, a growth consultant. I've even done M&A advising, and I have been a CEO of my own companies. I've created several multi-million-dollar selling information products, and my private clients, not my big company clients, but my private small business entrepreneurial clients have added over $400 million to client wealth, which is the equivalent of billions in sales. So I tell you those things so you get the sense that, at least in the business world, I know what I'm doing. This is kind of a new world, though, isn't it? And I like to call it the nascent world. Nascent refers to birth, and it refers to the world that's just being born, that's really in the process of reorganizing itself. You see, for the past 400 years and picking up speed for the past 150, I mean human beings, and particularly human beings in the Western world, have been living a deviant lifestyle. I consider it a temporary cultural aberration. And we've been out of sync with who we really are as spiritual beings that appears to be coming to an end. The mechanistic clockwork worldview is it's dying, and in a lot of places it's just dead. before there was agriculture, before there were cities, people lived very much in tune with nature, and they lived in tune with God. And if you read things like your Old Testament, you believe that God actually walked among people. And if you look in other non-Western cultures, the gods were considered to be among the people. When we started to have agriculture and people could actually settle down in one place, and over the course of time, and now I'm fast forwarding through 10,000 years of history, people became organized into cities and trades, and ultimately into factories, and finally into offices. And these things lead people into a regimented clockwork kind of existence. In fact, we didn't even need clocks until people had to start showing up at work at a defined place and defined time. 8 to 5, a half hour, an hour lunch break, 2 weeks vacation, all of this in the name of predictability, and all of it in the name of coordinating the activities of people where the work was being divided up. And the same thing with our kids going to school. They go to school from 7 to 3 or 7:30 to 3, and they have summers off for 3 months, and they all have to sit in rows, and they're all learning the same subjects at the same speed, for which most of them aren't suited because it's all geared towards the average, and the average doesn't describe too many people. Physics had a hand in this. Newton and his mechanistic view of the world. This is pretty functional, and it works for a lot of segments of the world, but it's been replaced by some very strange things. And if you pay attention to quantum physics and the non-mechanistic view that science is starting to have of how the world works, the whole belief in the clockwork universe, that A happens and then A leads to B, and B happens and B leads to C, and that you have to be able to prove everything with equations and repeatable experiments, all of this is starting to go away. And with the mechanistic view of the world, people's mechanistic view of themselves is starting to go away. We had the Industrial Revolution, and that really brought about everything that I was just talking about. But then when the Information Revolution came along, and we're really talking about the Internet Revolution, people were freed from time and place. And if you think about that, it was when the Internet came along that it started to make sense for people not to work all in the same place, that they didn't all have to work in the same cities. They could live out in the country. They could work on their own time frames and their own time scales. People could be somewhat separated from, let's call it, the clock. And as soon as you start separating yourself from the clock, then all sorts of other things start to be able to be possible. And then we have the spiritual revolution. And the spiritual revolution, I believe, is the one where we start to remember that we're not only human beings, but that we are spiritual beings. We are coming full circle, and we're coming full circle into a new world. And I know that sounds a little contradictory, because the new world looks a little bit like the ancient world did, where people believed in their spiritual selves as much as they believed in their human selves. You see, in the new world, the old way of doing business, which I'm going to describe as competitive, as exploitative, as rapacious, we treat people as, we call them human resources. They're not human resources, for God's sakes, they're people. And that's a very different kind of a thing. And we even have a word which is caveat emptor. It's an old Roman expression which means let the buyer beware. I have to tell you, I don't want to live in an environment. I don't want to work in an environment where the buyer has to beware. These things, this way of doing business, is not working as nearly as well as it did before, if it ever really worked at all. So what's keeping it in place? Inertia. People's natural resistance to change. It's been very slow. It's taken hundreds of years. And a few things that's keeping the old world in place is established vested interests who basically resist change because it erodes their possibility for position and power. But the biggest change itself is people's resistance to change, like inertia. Newton said it. Now I'm quoting Newton in a good way. Newton said, a body in motion tends to stay in motion, and a body at rest tends to stay at rest. In other words, that aspect of nature resists change. And then there's another part of it, which is, people talk about the comfort zone. People want to remain in the comfort zone. Human beings like staying in the comfort zone. We want to stay in our safe zone. And even though as business people, we all know that the comfort zone, safe zone could be like death to us, for the most part, people would rather remain where things are familiar and comfortable. And it's not the comfort zone itself that's the problem. It's our commitment to staying there. So that increases our natural inertia. And then there's one more thing, which is the belief that the way things are has always been that way, and it always will be. And everybody believes that in every age, and it's never, ever true. The way things are now is not the way they've always been. In fact, it's been a very short period of time. Our Industrial Revolution happened roughly 150, well, probably 160, 70 years ago. And things have changed very, very fast since then, and they're starting to change very, very fast again. This is from an old song by a guy named Warren Zevon. He says, the stuff that used to work, it don't work now. Yeah, so the stuff that used to work is not working as well as it was, and it's time for a change. It's time for a shift in who we think we are and how we operate on a daily basis. So I got another news flash for you. 5% of the known universe is the stuff that we can see and touch. Only 5% of everything we know about the known universe is what we call matter and energy. And we used to think that the other 95% was empty, except the other 95% is something that they now call dark matter and dark energy. Now, here's what's crazy about dark matter and dark energy. Scientists can prove it's there by the effects that it exerts. So there's a strong belief that it's there, except we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't taste it, smell it, feel it, we cannot measure it, and in fact, we know absolutely nothing about it, except we're sure it's there. Does that sound to you like people's belief in God? You can see the effects of spirit. You just can't touch it or prove it. So I believe that 5% of our experience is the 3D world. The 3D world is my shorthand for the physical world of the five senses that we live in, the rationalist world, the Newtonian world, the world we can write equations about. And 95% of the world is the new old stuff. It's the spiritual experience and all of the spiritual realms that, no, I can't prove to you it's there, but I certainly can observe the effects, and you can too. Let's take a look at another idea that I believe is really important. So before the Enlightenment came along, roughly about 400 years ago, people lived much in the heart experience, that they felt things. And then when the Enlightenment came along, part of the Enlightenment was the idea of the rationalist world, the clockwork world, and the mind experience took over. Because we're at a point in time, for everything that I've just spoken about, that because we're at a point in time where we're starting to become, I'm going to say back awake, we've started to become back aware, we have this incredible opportunity to have boths. I'm not saying throw out the mind experience, that would be insane. No, don't do that, but incorporate the heart experience. Now, some people try to separate these two, and they call one thinking and they call the other one feeling. And to some degree, that's a fit, but it's not really a good fit. You see, those are two different centers of intelligence. They're two different modes of perception. They're actually two different modes of communication. And there's a gigantic fundamental difference, which is that the mind experiences communicated to other people can affect their thinking. And yet, the heart's experiences, when you can communicate to other people, can affect their very being. And that's a huge difference indeed. And not to get too ahead of myself, but if you think about your business and you think about your business as marketing and sales and promotion, all of your communication, all of the ways that you seek to influence people, that influence can be driven much, much farther and much more deeply by your heart experience than by your mind experience. And when you can incorporate the two, you've heard it said, they say it, have been saying it in sales since, I don't know, since I went to sales school, and maybe 100 years before that. They would say you sell with logic, rather you persuade people by logic, and then you get them to actually make the decision by their feelings. And those are both the heart experience and the mind experience, except for the most part, we haven't been very good at the mind experience. And I'm going to ask you to start to incorporate that much, much more. I want you to open your heart and use it to think. Now, if you don't know how to do this, I'm going to offer you a challenge right now. And of course, if you do know how to do this, you know what? You can take the challenge as well because you're right here on the webinar with me. I want you to start thinking with your heart. Now, if that sounds like a crazy thing, like, what does that mean? Think with my heart. Here's what I want you to do. You know how if you were to imagine locate where in your body your mind thinks. And it may not be true for you, but for most people, they imagine that their mind is actually occurring inside of their head, inside of their skull. There's a brain in there, and the mind lives inside the brain. And if I ask you, where does your mind thinking occur? Most people think that it happens towards the front of their skull. What I want you to do is drop your attention from your head where it normally is. Let's drop it right down, right into the center of your chest, and just call that your heart. Yeah, I know your heart's over a little bit to the side, but just call that your heart. And it even helps if you put your hand right there and try to listen to the rest of this webinar from that space in your heart. And if you listen to the whole rest of this webinar from that space in your heart, actually listen and think with your heart, it's going to completely transform everything that I say to you. And you're going to walk away with an incredible new skill and an incredible new way of acting in the world. So, by the way, don't try to drive your car this way. It gets a little bit goofy. So don't do that. When you're driving your car, it helps to actually be in your headspace. But for now, if you can, just, from time to time, put your hand on your chest and try to think about what I'm saying with your heart. It's a whole nother way to be there. I want to tell you a little story, and it has to do with part of my journey for how I got here. And starting about 13 years ago, I have always written goal sheets. I've been writing goal sheets for, I don't know, probably 30 years. And at one point, about 13 years ago, I started writing a goal on my goal sheet that said, I want to become spiritual. And I mean, that was a really funny kind of goal. I was not a spiritual person, and it lived there right next to make $800,000 next year, buy a new house in New Canaan. What else? What else was on there? Get that new car. Who knows what was on those goals? But you get the idea. Take another trip to Florence, go see the Great Wall. These were the goals that were on there, and then there was this goal that just sat right next to him, and it was the same kind of goal, and it said to be spiritual, that I want to be spiritual. So that's a pretty wacky goal. I mean, what kind of goal is that, to be spiritual? You don't put that on your goal sheet, but that was my goal. And by the way, I had no idea what that meant at the time, like none. I don't even know what it was doing there. But what I know now is that was the very beginning of my soul talking to me and trying to break through. And what happened as a result of doing that, and by the way, that goal had nothing happening. Now, by the way, I meditated the whole time. So if you think meditation is like spirituality, then there was something going on there. But I was meditating, but there wasn't much else there. And my belief system was very much rooted in the physical 3D material world and stuff that I could see, taste, touch, smell, hear. And I kept having that goal. And then at one point, I started doing an exercise that opened up my entire world. And I'm going to teach you that exercise in just a minute. And by doing that exercise, the goal started to shift. And I didn't even realize what was happening. But one day I didn't have the goal on my goal sheet anymore. because the world had opened up to me. When you feel into the world opens up. See, what many of us do, some people do this naturally, but most people just think about everything. And particularly business people, particularly entrepreneurs, tend to be very brain-centered, and we think about things. I'm going to ask you to feel into the world. And the simple way for you to do that is to start relating to the world from that thinking space in your heart. By the way, this is not crazy nonsense that there's, again, I don't want to use science to prove spirituality, but there's scientific evidence that there are nerve cells that in your heart that actually function like neurons. And in a very real sense, there's a part of your heart that thinks. And that's the part that I want you to gain access to, because when you start to feel into the world like that, the world opens up. See, you can't really do this with your head because that truly is thinking. But when you start to perceive through your heart, whether it's feeling or thinking, I don't care what you label it, when you do what I'm talking about, the world's going to open up to you and it's going to relate to you in a very different way. There's one more piece to this, which is that a lot of people walk around through life wondering what their purpose is. And they're trying to make sure, and a lot of gurus and a lot of consultants and management people and motivational speakers, and they're all telling you that you want to live your life like a life on purpose. And that's a really good thing. But people, what they will tell you is that if you live a life on purpose, then you're going to be happy. The only thing is that purpose that you typically have access to, that's the human being purpose. And you know what? That's absolutely an improvement over having no purpose at all. And it's going to be really good for you, but it's not going to be totally amazing. What's going to be totally amazing for you as a human being is to get into alignment with what I believe is your soul's purpose. So how do you do that? See, your soul comes here with a purpose, and the challenge is you can't quite understand it because you and your soul do not speak the same language. And not only that, you don't have the same frame of reference. Your soul exists on a whole different level of development above you. And the way souls communicate, I don't know, I have no idea if they have language or not. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually try to feel into this. And this is pretty simple, which is that you try to feel whether what you're doing at any given moment is making your soul happy, so to speak. And the way you know that is that you feel happy at a very, very deep level. You know, there's only two feelings. There's like the good feeling and there's the bad feeling. There's the happy feeling and the unhappy feeling. And some people refer to that as love and fear. And when you're in love with what you're doing, you know that you're on track with what your soul wants. And if you feel bad, and I don't mean at any one moment in time, but if the general trend of how you feel about what you're doing with your life is not good, then you're not aligned with it and you are on the wrong track. So start feeling into the world, start feeling into your soul. And what happens is you're going to find that your soul and the whole world is going to start talking to you in a completely different way. So let me just sidebar for a minute and ask you a quick question. If you thought your soul was talking to you, and by the way, you didn't think you were going crazy, and your soul, or even some of the other aspects of your spiritual existence, were telling you things, you were receiving communications, and a lot of people talk this way. If you're receiving communications and you believe that those communications would be true, which, by the way, if you are tuned in, the things that you are hearing are true, how would that impact your ability to make powerful business decisions? And not just business decisions, powerful decisions about your family, your health, your community, every aspect of your life. If you were truly listening and you were getting the message, do you think that would make a difference? So resonate with your soul's purpose. By the way, if you look at my logo down on the lower right-hand side of the slide, you'll see that I'm talking about something called Resonate 180. And that's where this stems from. And whether or not you hear it, right now, this is your soul talking to you. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that That's actually why you're on this webinar. Your soul's talking to you about this, because otherwise you would have heard it, you would have seen my marketing, you would have seen my emails or my advertising, or wherever you found out about this, and you would have moved right on. But the very fact that you're here means that you were called to be here, and that's your soul talking. So I want to talk to you about your heart center just for a moment, and I'm going to give you an exercise to do. See, if you've never opened up your heart center, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then this next few minutes that we spend together will be a life-changing experience for you. And it's going to be totally worth the hour that you spend on this webinar. And you could have been here an entire day and it would have been worth it. You could have been here a month and it would have been worth it. And by the way, this exercise is the one that I did that totally changed my life. From that moment in time, it was after this exercise that the goal to be spiritual fell off of my goal sheet and started being transformed into something else. So what you see right there is a picture right up on your screen. That little mandala is a picture, and it's a representation of what people refer to as their heart center or their heart chakra. So what I want you to do is close your eyes just for a minute and take a deep breath. And let it out. And as you let that breath out, feel yourself relax. And imagine your heart. Feel it right there in the center of your chest. Feel it warm and beating. Feel it filled with love. Yeah, just put your hand right there just for a minute so you can get physically centered in it. And that's your heart. Now imagine a wheel right there in the middle of your chest. And it's a flat wheel. And it's spinning slowly, and it's a green, flat, slowly spinning wheel, and it's turning clockwise. And it's a wheel of energy, and that's what people call a chakra. It's a wheel of energy. That's your heart chakra. And it has a name, and its name in Sanskrit is Anahata. So if you ever want to speak to your heart chakra, you can call it by that name. You can call it Anahata, and it'll respond to you. Now imagine that slowly spinning wheel is giving off a pulsing, steady green energy. And the wheel's turning and the energy's expanding. Feel it expand into your whole body. Feel it light up your whole body. And then I want you to expand it out beyond your body. And it's going to light up the space with this beautiful green energy. It's going to light up that space about 3 feet around you, not that far out. And if anyone is sitting next to you or somebody else is within 3 feet of you, they're going to be warmed and touched by your heart chakra energy. You're going to feel them and they're going to feel you. And now you want to expand it a little further out, maybe expand it 10 feet out. And everybody who's within that 10 feet orbit of you, they're going to feel your heart chakra energy and you're going to feel them. And you're each going to be touched by each other. And now we're going to go further out and we're going to expand it about 100 feet out. And by the way, you have limitless energy and you're just going to expand it out and you can keep going. And as you expand it out, your energy is actually going to build. And now you're going to encompass more people as you go out and you touch them and they touch you. And now you're going to keep going and we're expand out a mile. Wow. And you're going to communicate with even more people and feel the love come into you and feel your heart expand as you do this. And now we're going to expand it 10 miles out and keep going, and your heart chakra is going to expand 100 miles out. And if you can imagine it, 1,000 miles out, reaching halfway across the country. And if you're in the middle of it, it's going to reach clear across the country to both sides. And that's going to expand up and down and front to back and side to side. And it expands 10,000 miles, encompassing the entire world. And feel your heart energy wrapping around the entire world. It's blanketing everybody with your heart energy and your love. And it's coming back to you as you do that. And just feel that just for a moment. And feel what that feels like. And feel your heart expand and all your feelings expand. And now that you've done that, You can do this on your own, and you could just keep going, and you could go all the way into outer space and beyond that if you have the time and the energy expanded. But I don't want you to leave that out there forever. We're going to start to come back now. So just slowly pull back. And every being that you've crossed, and now you're uncrossing, and as you feel that pullback, just acknowledge them and acknowledge all the joy and the connection and the little bit of light that you've shed and all that creation that's just occurred in the last couple of minutes. And when you finally pull the light back into yourself, capture all of that radiance that you picked up along the way. I'm going to count to 3. And at 1, take a deep breath and feel yourself being fully energized and filled with love and light. And now on the count of 2, feeling yourself starting to come back awake and into the present moment. And now on 3, open your eyes and feel all that amazing feeling that you just experienced, and feel your heart just glowing and bursting with energy. Now, you don't have to go all the way each time that you do that. You could just keep it a little more local. You can keep it local. You can go farther. You can go all the way out through the whole universe. Experiment with it. Do that once a day for the next few days, or maybe for the whole rest of your life, and your heart will keep expanding and it will open up and it will start to do amazing things, and you're going to be shocked and surprised at how good things will start to happen in your relationships, your friendships, your romance, your family, your business relationships. And I promised you a way to improve your sales. If you open your heart chakra and push that heart chakra energy out there and push it out into the world, your ability to make sales will skyrocket. Your relationships with prospects and existing clients and customers is going to be totally transformed, and your ability to make money through selling is going to go through the roof. I have taught this and similar exercises to hundreds of salespeople, and they typically report amazing abilities. You know, all that stuff about how you have to do all these physical contortions to gain rapport with people. If you take a few minutes just to do this exercise and point your consciousness at whomever the next person you're going to speak to about your product or services, your relationship with them will be transformed. Open up your heart and start getting in connection with your soul. And your experience of spirit is going to shift from something that may have been conceptual. It may have been something that you were taught by your parents or that you were taught in church. As it was for me, it was just a concept. And doing this exercise turned it into a rock solid reality. It goes from a concept to actually becoming something really tangible in your life. And your heart lives into your life. And you start to remember who you used to be. And more, your soul will talk to you. I'm going to switch gears again, and I want to talk about the stuff of spirit. So it might be funny, and it might sound actually weird to have somebody talk about the hardcore stuff of spirituality, but here it is. This is the stuff of it. Everything is energy. Now, you all know that everything in the universe that you knew about, the 5 senses 3D world is energy: light, heat, sound, electricity, magnetism, gravity. We don't actually know what gravity is, by the way. We feel its effects, but no one can actually tell us what it is. All matter in all its forms. Einstein, the theory of relativity, told us that matter is just condensed energy. It's slowed down energy. All living things are energy. Life is energy. And not only that, but everything in between is energy. Not only, it's not space, there's energy in there, and all the connections between it are energy. In other words, everything is energy. Absolutely everything. Your business, your money is energy. Everything is energy. Think of energy connecting everything and everyone. Now, this is the truth about the world that we live in, but traditionally business is conducted within a framework that sounds a lot like us and them. And sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes it's us versus them. That's how you define a competitive environment. For somebody to win, somebody else has to lose. Now, when you see that everyone is connected at some energetic level, you can't operate like us and them any longer. It changes everything about how you have to relate to all of the players in your company, in your marketplace. I refer to that as your business ecosystem. Everyone in your universe, think of it as a woven tapestry of energy where everything and everyone is interconnected. Have you ever had this feeling that you are thinking or feeling of someone who you know, and you haven't had any sort of interaction with them in quite some time, and then the phone rings? What do you think that is? Now, some people are more affected by that than others, and some people have it more with some people than other people. But that's everyone, that's the web, that is that tapestry. And it's almost as if that a thread is being pulled on one end and somebody feels it on the other end, and they pick up the phone and call you. So this energy that we're talking about, this is an infinite energy source. It is unlimited, it is renewable, and it is pure, creative, loving power. Now, love's a tricky word. I say love, and some people means it thinks that their spouse gives them flowers once a week. And for other people, it means that their spouse makes them dinner at the right time. And sometimes people call that love. We call all sorts of things love. Everything is either fear or love. Everything is either that bad feeling that you want to move away from or that wonderful feeling that you want to move towards. And it's really only one or the other. And when you see that the whole world is just built out of this infinite energy source of unlimited, renewable, and pure, creative, loving power, what if you could run your business with that? What if you could run your business with loving, infinite energy instead of what we all call blood, sweat, and tears? Wouldn't that be an amazing shift for you? And the shift is simply to become conscious of it. The shift is simply to become conscious of that web of energy and to realize that everybody is part of it and to wake up to that soul connection that we have simply by talking to it and being quiet enough to listen. This starts to be what happens for you. You become aware. You remember, look, it used to be this way. Going back centuries, millennium, eons. Yeah, eons. I don't know how long eons is, but it's a really long time. I'm talking about way, way back, even before there was history, and maybe even before there was spoken language. It goes back so deep, but you can remember it, not necessarily in your conscious mind, but you can remember it deep in your cellular memory, like deep in your DNA. That's how it used to be. See, you may not even have any idea what I'm talking about, except you respond to it. Nevertheless, it feels good to you, and you feel it. You feel it deep in that cellular level. See, people are being drawn to what I'm saying, and people are being drawn to this. People call this the new age. I started by saying that. It's a new world. People are being drawn to what I'm saying because it's what they know in their cells, in their souls. They know that this is the way it's always been, and it's true, except we've forgotten. And what I'm asking you to do is to remember, to become aware of it. See, the human part of you, that 3D part of you, if we strip away all the bioelectrical chemical effects of the human body, what you start to get down to is pure spirit. And that part remembers. See, let's talk about the world as we know it just for a minute. So you've got sight, you can hear, you have touch, smell, taste. You have organs for each of these. You got your eyes, your ears, your skin for touch, your nose for smell, your tongue. These are the things that give you access to the 3D physical world that we know of. And obviously, this is how you know the world, and this is what you know the world to be. Your imagination is another kind of sense organ. Your imagination is the sense organ that gives you access to the other world, to that not physical world, not the world of the five senses, but the other 95%. I call that the supersensory world. It's a set of senses that you didn't even know that you have. It's the thing that people call the spirit world. It's your imagination that gives you access to that. Now, this can get a little bit tricky because there's two kinds of imagination, and we use the same word to mean two different things. So let's see if we can make it make sense. There's the world that you make up, right? The things that you make up. We call those fantasies. And that's one kind of imagination, the things that you made up. And you generally, unless you've started losing your mind and you're a little bit crazy, you know the things you made up and you can tell that you've made them up. And then there's the imagination that you actually perceive and you feel it to be real. And what we have been taught, and many of us have been taught by our parents, and we can't really blame them because they were taught this by their parents, and we were taught this way in their schools, and they say, Paul, stop making things up. And yet you have this real sense that you're perceiving something honest and true. And when you believe that you're perceiving something honest and true with your imagination, guess what? You are. That is how you get access to the spiritual world. You get access to it through your imagination. I was studying something called Tantra, and Tantra is all about moving the energy that I'm talking to you about now. And when I first started doing it, I didn't know how. And it's kind of like trying to describe blue to somebody who's blind. It's really hard to do. You can't do it. How would you possibly do it? What words would you use to describe blue? So describing energy to somebody who's never felt it is a lot like describing blue. And yet I'd read enough. I started to make up in my mind what this thing would feel like to me. And then there were certain things that you did with it. I started to imagine them in my mind that I was doing them. So a really interesting thing happened, which is it had effects out in the 3D world. In other words, I could move energy and my partner could feel it, and she could feel it whether she was across town or she could feel it whether she was across the country. And I started experimenting with this in all sorts of ways. And as I was imagining it, things started to happen. So I was like, oh, well, this really works, except I was perplexed because I imagined it. So Osho, a man who is a Hindu sage, he's gone now, who used to talk about these things, said, don't worry if you think you're making it up. You are. Don't worry if you're imagining it, because you are. Simply look for the reality behind what you're imagining. So this is very, very important. And I want you to just write it down. My imagination is a sensory organ. It's how I perceive the spiritual world. And you may think you're imagining things, but that's what's really going on. Let's talk about intuition just for a minute. Intuition can be a feeling or a thought. It can be any internal representation. A lot of people feel their intuition with their five senses. Or sometimes you just think it, but it's typically things that you have no basis for thinking. It's not something that you learned. It's just something that pops in. So intuition is this amazingly powerful tool. And a lot of people think that intuition is like some nonlinear kind of heart-centered right brain talking to you, or maybe it's just you remembering things that you learned before that you just couldn't bring to conscious awareness, and now they're becoming conscious. So that's really powerful. And if that's all it was, it would be great. But it's really powerful if you think that what's really going on is that you're getting guidance. You see, right brain thinking is a great idea, but hey, it's still your brain. But what is amazingly more powerful is if you believe that what's actually happening when you feel your intuition is that you're getting guidance from one or more of your spiritual selves. Just for a second, what would it be like for you? Like, how interesting would it be for you in any aspect of your life, and especially your business? And would it help you make more profitable decisions if you could base those decisions on an external guidance system that at some level had access to all of the information that there ever has been, that is now, and that there ever will be? So look, believe me or don't, but that is exactly what is available to you if you take the time to listen and get connected and start to believe that that is, in fact, what's happening for you. So I have one more thing to tell you about this, and that completes this idea, which is everything comes in levels. So in other words, there's things you think are true, but you're not really sure. And then there's what you believe is true. Now, you're pretty sure about what you believe, right? Believe are the things in which you have no doubt. And then there is what, without any shadow of any possible doubt, you simply know. So right now, right on this webinar, and as you go forward, it is time to embrace your knowing. Did you ever just know things? So a lot of the time, when you turn inward and put your attention on your internal experience, you get pictures, you get sounds, you get feelings. It's rare. Some people even have smells and tastes. And then there are things that are beyond that. Those are the things that you just know. So inner knowing takes a little bit of practice for you to really latch onto it. It's subtle because in some ways it's just a recognition of what's just popped in there. But knowing has a different kind of a quality to it. Knowing has a sense of certainty, like you are absolutely sure. Knowing feels real. Now, it's a little tricky and you can confuse knowing. You might think that knowing is a sense of something falsely remembered. Kind of like deja vu, like something you heard before at an earlier time. You know you didn't hear it, or maybe you don't know, but it feels right. But it also feels a little bit wrong. See, that's different from knowing. When you have knowing, you just know. And I know that sounds redundant, but that's really it. Knowing is certainty. Tuning into your knowing is a huge shift for anybody. Your knowing is critical to realizing that your spiritual experience is actually happening to you, right? Tuning into your knowing is a huge part of how you employ what I call practical spirituality to accelerate and improve your business. Because if you just think that you're imagining things, you're not going to guide your business based on that. But when you get clear about the difference between what you made up and the stuff that you're imagining that you are getting as communication from another part of reality, that you are perceiving as another part of reality, then you stop doubting. And at that moment, everything about your entire life starts to change. Now, look, it's not always smooth sailing because a lot of this is strange. And strangeness and more strangeness is going to show up for you way more than before. And you're going to decide whether or not you're going to choose to believe it. When you become comfortable with the idea that this thing that I'm talking about, that this knowing thing, that it's yours, that it's your knowing, your whole life broadens dramatically. Your understanding of things broadens dramatically. Things you used to discount and call made up, or whatever you used to say, take on a very different meaning for you. And the more those things become for you, the more real they become, the greater is your willingness to use them to take action. So for now, all those things that you think or feel are imagined, just keep imagining them. But check in and distinguish whether those are things that you made up or actually things you know. And those things you know, start to call them knowing, and then see what happens from there. I want to talk for a minute about what I call practical spirituality. And you've heard me use the expression now a few times, and I want to define it for you. So practical spirituality puts the emphasis on reconciling duality, on being comfortable with opposites, on flowing and applying spiritual energy, that energy that we've been talking about, and on the easy acquisition of ancient wisdom, basic wisdom that's there. Let me just say that it's there in the atmosphere, it's there in the ethosphere for you, but you haven't had it before. And when you start to delve into practical spirituality, when you embrace the energy, when you embrace the knowing, when you embrace that, oh yeah, that's my soul talking to me. That's my higher self talking to me. That's the other people in my connected universe talking to me. Then the wisdom starts to become easily accessible to you. Practical spirituality embraces the idea of full and continual integration of spiritual practices with your mundane 3D world concerns. And when you start to weave spiritual practices into your everyday 3D world, you start to have a whole different kind of relationship to what you can and cannot make happen. Practical spirituality embraces the improvement of your material and your work life by aligning your work with spirit. It embraces and encourages improvement of relationships with people, with nature, with whatever it is that you call the higher power, whether it's God or source or creative intelligence or whatever you call it. But you actually improve your relationship with that because that's what we do. And then lastly, practical spirituality embraces the practice of practices. And it's the basis for everything that I'm talking about. I am not I'm not asking you to accept any particular belief system. None of that is required. You don't actually have to believe anything that I'm telling you. All you have to do is take on the practices that I'm offering you and see what happens. This is what happened to me. Somebody said, do this, and I was at that place in my life where I started to do it. And what happened as soon as I started to do it was my belief system shifted. So first come the practices, then the beliefs, not the other way around. The other way around, I think, is a little weak-minded. Yeah, take on the belief system and then see what happens. I'm going to say take on the practice and practice some of the things that I'm sharing with you. And I expect that your belief systems will shift. So a lot of people get all stressed out when I even use the phrase practical spirituality. Yeah, they know it's coming. See, when they think of spirit, a lot of people think of it in the context only of sacred things, which, by the way, means spiritual things, and that it's not supposed to be for worldly things, profane things, and they don't like it when I mention the idea of spiritual power, as if spiritual power was something that you could have. See, when I say that you can tap into the spiritual world, that you can tap into that spiritual power, that spiritual connection, and that you can use it for material gain, when I say that you can use practical spirituality to help expand your business, to get more customers, to serve them better, to make more money, and yeah, of course, have your business do more of what you want it to do in the world, whatever it is that you set out to do, there's a lot of people that have a problem with that. And I'm pretty sure that if you're on this webinar with me, you don't have an issue with this, but if you do, I want to say something, and it's very important. Pay attention no matter what. However our world, however this universe that we live in got created, and it did get created by someone or something, whoever or however got created however this place got created, it got created warts and all. It got created with all of its aspects, all of its flaws, all of its imperfections. Whoever created it didn't just create part of it, it created all of it. So I know that your creator, intelligent or not, volitional, willful or not, personal or impersonal, the creator loved every aspect of creation as much as every other aspect of it. And that means that spirituality, your connection to the non-physical spiritual world, can be used for sacred things, and it can be used for worldly material things. And it is perfectly okay to be spiritual and to use that spirituality however you want. The world got made that way. And it's okay to put it to work for you on your behalf. So yes, you can be spiritual and you can live like a monk, or you can practice in that magical, mystical, metaphysical way, or you can be practical and profane and put spirituality to work for you in the material world. And yes, you can absolutely put it to work for you in your business. And yes, you can put it to work for you to make more money. And it is totally your choice. I want to tell you about spiritual crowdsourcing, and this is one of my favorite, most powerful aspects of practical spirituality. See, when you live in connection to some or all of the other beings in the universe, it's like being in a giant mastermind. It's like being in an unlimited, virtually always on-demand mastermind filled with the most brilliant minds and hearts and spirits in the entire universe who, by their very extreme vastness and reach, by their collective infinite age, have experienced everything there is to experience. So if you pay attention, answers to everything that you could ever ask become available to you. If you ask deeply, those answers will come. Your natural state of being is intuitive and knowing. It lives in the present moment, not the past or the future. It is able to freely flow the energy that I've been speaking about, to command it and flow it for your benefit and the benefit of others. You are connected to everyone and everything when you choose to be. You always are, but you need to choose to become aware of it. You are a complete whole and complete, just the way you are, and yet you are part of a much larger whole. And you are creative, not in the sense of a painter or a musician, but you are creative in the sense of that you can bring things into being. The world is not random. It is not chance. It is not circumstances. It is not based on coincidence. It was not intelligently designed. It was not master planned, nor is it watched over. The world is not any of those things. The world is deliberate. It is a world of cause and effect. It only seems like random or chance or coincidence when you can only see the effects and not the causes. When you tug a string somewhere in the tapestry, the string is tugged. That tug, it's felt somewhere else. When you can't see where the tug came from, it feels to you like there's no cause, like it's random. It is anything but random. The world is a web of connections and interdependence. It's not a world of independence and isolation. And it's a world that is continually created by you and other beings like you, beings at the same level and beings at much, much higher levels, all of whom are connected to you. It's a world where you are joined to tremendous wells and sources of energy and intelligence, and you only need to look inside and ask yourself whether that's true to know that it's true. All this means that you have available to you a tremendous sense of potential power to accomplish your purpose, your mission, your business, your goals, everything. You can have infinite power, and you can be very, very deliberate about it. So we've been talking about practical spirituality, and some of the applications that it will have for you in your business once you get started. See, when you grasp what I'm talking about, not learn or understand these things, understanding is like what you get if you didn't put it into action. But when you start to play with what I'm talking about, experiment, do some of the little exercises that I've given you. Put these things into action. Have the experience for yourself. Experience that energy is everything. It is all material, all things, all life. It is you, it is your business, your products. Yes, it is your money. It's all energy. Everything shares that dimension of existence. And when you realize that because you're made up of the same stuff, and because you have intelligence and will, that gives you dominion over these things. It gives you power and control. That's how your mind can heal your own sicknesses, and that's how your mind can transform your business. And when you realize that you have that mind experience and that heart experience, and that mind experience, yes, it affects people's thinking, but the heart experience changes their very being and causes them to take action and shift and expand and change. And when you open your heart and you feel and see that woven tapestry to which we're all connected, and realize that you can connect to any little part of it or the entire thing, and that you can tap into the energy, and that you can manipulate it in a 100% positive way with your creative imagination. Your intention drives all these things, and yet your soul's intention really drives these things, and that you can open up to your intuition and know that it's not just your gut, your feelings, but that you can expect that there is a true guidance system that will tell you which way to turn and how fast to go and when to slow down and when to be very cautious and when to play full out. And when you become crystal clear and totally certain just because you know, that's when you start to come into your own and you claim that deliberate infinite power that's yours. So let me ask you a question. What would happen if you brought that kind of energy, power, intelligence, creativity, connection, certainty, knowing? What would happen if you brought that into your business? Imagine the possibilities. I want you to just take a moment and write down what you expect could shift for you and be very specific. What 3 things could change, will change a lot when you learn to put practical spirituality to work for you in your business. And just take that piece of paper you've been writing on and write down those 3 things. And as you write them down, I want you to realize that everything that you experience in your life is totally in your control. And now that you realize that everything is totally in your control, you have a choice. Now, you also have to realize that you have access to an astounding well, an abundant source of untapped power and ability. And the choice you have to make is, do you want to let things stay the way they are and leave your experience up to chance as it's been up till now? Or do you want to take command of your destiny? Because look, I don't know why you showed up here today. It could be because your day-to-day life, your work, whatever, maybe it's leaving you feeling a little drained or derailed or off purpose, or maybe the meaning that your life had just isn't there now. Or maybe you feel like your business is stuck. You're sure you're doing the right things, and it may not even have to do with the things you're doing at all. All you know is that you're stuck and you're not getting what you want. Or maybe your life is phenomenal. It's amazing, but it's just by your nature. You'd like to find ways to make it even more amazing. Or maybe you just know there's more. So today you've begun to realize that a lot of what's going on in your life is because you've been ignoring the practical possibilities of your spiritual consciousness. So it brings up another question. And it's really the only question that you should be asking right now. And that question is, how can I start using practical spirituality in my life and my business? I've been asking this question for years, and it's led me to develop the program on exactly how to put practical spirituality to work in my life and especially in my business. So remember those 3 possibilities I had you write down just a couple of minutes ago? Take a look at them and ask the question, how quickly do you want to get those things to happen in your business? You can start from scratch. I've given you enough clues. These are the clues I had. You can try to take what you've heard today, and you can do this all on your own. It's taken me about a decade of studying, but you can go that way. And you may know a lot more than I did when I started, and you can patch it together with a lot of the things that you've already learned. I think that's the slow way. I think that's the hard way. Or you could speed up the whole process and start getting the benefits of the results much sooner. So you can get the benefit of the system that I've created. I based it on my experience and my studying of ancient wisdom and centuries-old teachings, esoteric knowledge, and things that have worked for people for, thousands of years all over the world. And it's helped them achieve huge financial success, lifelong satisfaction, tremendous impact. If you know me, if you know anything about me, you know that my particular talent is studying things and putting them together into systems that work and get results. And I put together a program, and it's called Resonate 180, and I created it to speed things up for you dramatically, to accelerate the growth of your personal spiritual development and to accelerate the growth of your business using practical spirituality while you bring it into other parts of your life. It starts exactly where you are. You don't have to be at any particular level. It doesn't matter where you are in your business. It doesn't matter where you are in your spiritual development. It doesn't matter where you are. It will meet you there. And it integrates your current business and your current spiritual approach and aligns them with specific practices and teaching that I've evolved along my own journey. It's designed to support you into tapping into that 95% of your experience, the spiritual world, that you may be unaware of, or just not sure what to do, or maybe just completely not paying attention to, and bringing it to life for you. It's about making things happen, and it's about getting things done, which is why I call it practical spirituality in the first place. So look, I don't want to give you a whole sales pitch for something. And that's actually my partner, Robin, and I, we thought it would make a lot more sense to first find out what you need and then set you on the road to getting it rather than give you the sales pitch. We thought it would be better for us just to have a conversation. So if you want to start on the road to achieving a whole different kind of success, a different kind of satisfaction and impact, different personally and professionally, and earn more money and experience every aspect of your life in a whole new way, then we should have a conversation. You should talk to us. And so what I suggest you do is get yourself scheduled for what we call it a strategic shift session. And I put a URL there on the screen. I wish you could just click it, but you can't. You actually have to type it into a browser. And if you're listening, it's resonate180.com/shift session. Resonate180.com/ all lowercase shift session. So the strategic shift session is all about making the shift to incorporating practical spirituality into your business life and doing it right away. And the shift in your life and the results that you get is going to be huge. So what this thing is this. It's designed as a short conversation. It's going to be anywhere from 10 minutes, and it's only 10 minutes if we find out really fast we're not a fit for each other. So it's 10 minutes to around 30 minutes or so, maybe a little longer. And together, we're going to answer a bunch of very specific questions. So we call it the strategic shift session because that's what happens. You're going to get it right away. You're going to get how to start making the shift to practical spirituality and how it fits into your business and the kind of difference that you can have almost immediately from implementing detailed practices that help you with the things that we spoke about today and a lot more. And you're going to walk away with two very specific and pretty valuable things. We're going to identify first the one key issue that's been keeping you from achieving the kind of success that you deserve in your business in that spiritual dimension. And what's been keeping you from having that level of core fulfillment and meaning that you really want and need. Now, this alone is going to get you moving in the right direction because once you know what's in your way, you can begin to deal with it. You're also going to get crystal clear on the one next step that you can put into action right away. And that's going to clear the way for lifelong success in every way that you can measure it. And you don't need me to tell you how important the first next step can be, because once you put that into action, you've taken the first step towards momentum and the first step towards deep and lasting change. So if that makes sense for you, and I hope it makes sense for everybody on this call, I think that everybody on this call should schedule a shift session. Because if you've been listening this long and you want exactly what I've been talking about to start to happen in your life, and you want to bring practical spirituality into your life, then this is the fastest way to get things moving. Schedule a shift session. Go to resonate180.com/shift session. As I said, it's on the screen. I wish that you could click it. You can't. The technology won't work that way for us. And go to that website and just schedule a call with us. Robin and I have set aside a limited number of spots for shift session appointments. We put them on the calendar. Click the link. It's right there. Just click it. You can't click it. I keep saying that. Type it into your browser and pick a time that works for you. If you can't find a time that works for you well, I apologize because we've tried to make the schedule flexible, but we only have a limited amount of time for the sessions. So if you take a look and you want to have a shift session, you can't find a time that works, then drop us a note to that email address that's on the screen there. It's Robin with two B's, ROBBIN, at resonate180.com. And just go to Robin at resonate180.com. If you can't find a time that actually works for you. So go grab your time and do it right now, because I don't know about you, but I will, if I don't do it right now, it'll take me a while to do it. And I'm pretty sure that the sooner you have the session with us, the sooner the things are going to get moving for you, because that's pretty much how we design the sessions. They're supposed to do that. So go over to resonate180.com/shift session and reserve a spot for yourself that's going to allow you to take what I've outlined here for practical spirituality and put it to work in your business immediately. This is Paul Lemberg. And I've been talking to you for the past, it looks like just about, it's an hour and 7 minutes. I ran a little long. I've been talking to you for an hour and 7 minutes about practical spirituality and some things that you can do right away to implement practical spirituality in your business and the rest of your life. Take what you've learned on this webinar, go schedule a strategic shift session. Let's find out how we can make that work faster for you, and take this out into your life and go transform it. I wish you a fabulous rest of your day and fabulous work in your business, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.